Hello
Hi.
and welcome to another episode of Spiritually Unfiltered.
Love
I'm
having
Abby,
I'm Sima. I think
and
we need an intro to this.
yeah, maybe we need to polish that up a little bit.
It's
But
okay. This is supposed to be unfiltered.
exactly. Today we are going to be talking all about manifestation,
Yes.
and this is a hot topic in general. Everybody wants to manifest more of the things that they desire, to live that dream life, and we're going to be sharing our own personal tips and tricks and thoughts and
Yeah.
wisdom on this subject. And I'm so
Yeah.
excited to get into
Yeah.
it.
I think it's such an exciting topic. And like as Abby and I were talking about this before recording, we just realized that it's one of those things where we're really just going to have a conversation about this and you guys are going to listen in on the conversation because we have some different perspectives, even though they like go hand in hand with each other and we have different experiences. And of course, Abby understands so much with human design and how our human design plays into this. So we're literally just going to have a conversation about manifestation and our experiences and what we feel works best. And yeah, we hope it inspires you all.
For sure. I mean, yeah, everybody's going to get something beautiful from this episode. And what I would also say is whatever resonates for you. When you are listening to this episode, if
Uh-huh.
something that me or Seema say and it just literally gives you those butterflies or you get that gut feeling and you're
That's for you. Yes.
yeah, like you're switched on by what we're saying. That's maybe the entry point that you're looking for when it
Yeah.
comes to
Yes.
manifesting you know what I always call it, because people are always saying manifesting your dream life and all this. I always say manifesting your favorite reality because
I
I
love that.
think everybody's is so different, It's like,
Yes, your favorite reality, because that really is what it is. We could have so many different realities.
hmm,
And we get to pick our favorite reality. I think we get to start there for people to realize that in this world of creation, there are multiple dimensions, multiple timelines, multiple realities are available to us. We're just aware of this current reality that we're in right now. It's like a radio station. You can change the station, you can change the dial to the one that you want. So you can actually pick your favorite reality. Like it really is that simple. And I think because we were not raised to know these things and we're raised to be quote unquote realistic with what's possible, that creates so many limitations. So what we don't realize is we're picking a reality that's filled with limitations because we think those
hmm,
limitations are real.
yeah,
And then as you go through your awakening, you realize, hold on a second. The only thing that's real is what I believe to be real. So if I believe those limitations to be real, that's the reality I'm going to tune into. I actually have the capability to create the reality. I love what you said, my favorite reality. Yes, and we can change our minds and upgrade that and switch it up and remodel that whenever we want.
exactly. And I
Hmm.
think so many times we gaslight ourselves when we get those butterflies that I'm talking about, when something excites you and you want to dive into it, we can literally gaslight ourselves and say, oh, but like, how could I make money from that? Or, oh, that's too expensive. Or, we create all of these mind-based
Yep.
analytical
Uh-huh.
excuses for not doing the things that our body is guiding us towards.
Right. And
And
I think it's from like remembering that our body is that very wise and intuitive aspect of our soul that's telling us what's possible. So
mhm.
when it feels so good, that's like your soul, that eternal part of you screaming, yes.
Yeah.
But then as humans, like, there's that saying, it's too good to be true. Like
Oh,
everyone is so brainwashed with that that it's like you automatically believe it can't be true because it feels this good. And so the alternate is, oh, if it feels so shitty, then that's true. And then people wonder why they have realities that are less than their favorite reality.
exactly. And something I always speak to my clients about is, something we have in human design is your decision-making authority. And so this
Uh-huh.
is how you're how you best make decisions, how you sort of react to the world, and understanding your own allows you to tune into and connect with what you actually want when it starts to show up,
Mm-hmm.
because the things that we want, they come in as like breadcrumbs, so someone who may dream of being a world-renowned yoga instructor, they may
Mm-hmm.
go past a store and they get butterflies because they see a book in the store on yoga, but they'll talk themselves out of it. Oh, what's that ever going to do? And that's where we gaslight ourselves on those little breadcrumbs. But if we want to expand, if we want to expand into that favorite reality, this is when we have to trust the body, like you're talking about, because the mind, it's designed to keep you safe.
Right.
Only going to say yes to things that it knows, things that are comfortable, and that's
Right.
the disconnect. I think that's the disconnect where a lot of us can, yeah, feel that disconnect in ourselves and from the things that we want.
Let me ask you this decision-making thing in human design. Like, what are the different styles of decision making?
So there's 7 different decision-making authorities, but let's look at, for example, one of them is going with your gut, right?
What am I? Do we know what I am?
You're going with your gut. So
Okay, so
that's
let's
like
use me as an example so we can understand this.
so that's the reason. You remember a few days ago when, we were putting together the podcast picture,
Mm-hmm.
and I sent it to you and I said, well, I call Talia our podcast fairy because she's just like sprinkling magic on what we're creating here. And she put these together. And I said to her, you know what? I'm going to send them to Sima because she's sacral authority, so she'll know which one to choose straight away. Uh, but I mean, there's such a world beneath that, and but I think, understanding how we are designed to make decisions really helps you connect to your body. So for me, I'm emotional. And so what that means is for me, I actually take a little bit more time to come to my decisions. But what I used to do is I used to be very impulsive. I used to say yes to everything. I would give my energy away for free, And when I found human design, I put it to the test. I said, you know what? I'm gonna give this a try. I'm gonna try and follow this decision-making authority. And the job I was in at the time, my boss, she asked me if I would do something, and I said, let me think about it. And she literally said to me, oh, I've already agreed on your behalf because I thought you would say yes.
Oh, wow.
It was that moment that I realized that I wasn't like being the creative director of my life. I was, people just expected I would say yes. So people were, it was like I was on an autopilot people pleaser,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So, so I think like getting in tune with how we best make decisions is one of the ways that we can step into that role,
What
you
are
know?
the other ways? What are the other like authorities?
Oh, so there's 7 in total. So there is splenic authority as well. There's
What's that mean?
obviously R1's emotional, and sacral. Splenic authority is literally instinct. So it's similar to sacral, but it's a little bit different. And then we have ego authority, or I like to call it heart authority. And this is literally about going where you feel powerful, where you feel appreciated, and
Mm-hmm.
just like letting yourself tap into that. We have self-projected authority, so it's listening to the words that you say, really reveal the things that you want. We
Oh,
have
that's cool.
that's a really cool one, but it's one that people really sort of find hard to connect with sometimes
Mm-hmm.
because, when you're talking a lot, it's about letting yourself talk and hearing what you say.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that process of speaking, they're actually, processing what they want. And sometimes they can feel like they're indecisive, and that but it's like, no, just like listen to what's coming up and how you're processing it. And it reveals, okay, what your inner knowing is, you know? And so there's so many,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah. But what about you when it comes to that gut feeling when I say that to you?
I think that gut feeling is such a natural thing to me, and it's
Yeah.
probably because I have a sacral authority. And I
Yeah.
think the coolest thing about when you read my human design is that I had never looked at my charts or anything like that. And to see that I was operating in a way that goes in flow with my chart, I was like, that is the coolest thing, that like I've been doing this without ever having my chart read, because I just went with what felt the best for me, what
Mm.
felt good for me. And I think when people recognize that is, how do I operate in a way that feels right and good for me? And you will naturally be in flow with your chart.
Yeah, you will.
Because you read my chart, you're like, Seema, you're doing all of these things. Like, I understand why you operate the way you do. Like, this is literally what your chart says about you. And the only reason I came into like alignment with that was because I just listened to what felt best for me. And if it felt right for me, it was a yes. And if it didn't feel right for me, it was a no. And I think one of the greatest things I learned along the way is, if it's a no for me, it doesn't make it wrong for everyone. It just makes it wrong for me. And if it's a
Mm.
yes for me, it's a yes for me, but that's not going to feel right or good for everyone either. But then I've come to see that along the way, there are like universal truths with manifestation and how we like interact with things. And I think one of the universal truths is what feels best for you. What feels like an absolute yes and it lights you up. Like, you got to go with that.
Yeah,
You got to
I
go
agree.
with those thoughts, those feelings, those visions. And I think sometimes people look at their life and their current reality and they're like, well, this sucks so much. And I created this reality that, like, it's not good at all. And I'm like, there's a gift in that. Sometimes we have to have such a not our favorite reality
Mm.
to light a fire under us, to push us to creating that reality of our dreams. And I think that was a big part of what I had created in my life. And I was living a reality that I was like, this sucks. I don't like any of this. I don't like who I am. I don't like how I feel with myself. I don't like how I'm making my money. I didn't like any of it. And I had this moment where I was like, so wait a second. If I'm the creator of my reality and I created this rock bottom, shitty reality, can't the exact opposite be true as well for me? And that was the moment where I took my rock bottom and I was like, oh my God, I can create empires. And it clicked. And I was like, I just need to put my energy in the right direction, in the right beliefs. And to be honest, it was that rock bottom and the realization that I can create all of this that made me become like this unstoppable force in going after my visions.
Mm.
And that's how I have created everything that I've created, because I'm like, no, 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 I already know what rock bottom feels like. I already created that. That's not an option anymore. Like, we're not sitting there. So whatever it takes from me, whatever it requires, whatever inner transformation it needs or outer thing that I get to do, I'm like, I will do whatever I need to do. I will become whatever I get to become, because the alternate sucks and I've been there and I'm not going back there. This is why rock bottom or being tired of your own shit is the best place to
It
be.
is.
It lights a fire under you.
Do you know what? Like 10 years, this was like 10 years ago actually, but I came out of my first relationship and honestly, I was at rock bottom. I had been living in Finland with my partner at the time, and I had to move back to England, and I gave up my job, everything that I'd sort of, built in Finland and moved home, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And I was like at rock bottom. And I remember talking to this ex-boyfriend and saying to him, I feel like I'm at rock bottom. And him saying to me, it's a great place to bounce back from. And in the moment, I am like, literally, you were the worst person for it saying that because I was in that victim mode. But
Mm-hmm.
now I reflect back on that and I talk about what he said to me all the time.
Rock bottom is sacred, and I
It
think we
is.
don't realize it. But here's also the thing I want people to take from this, because sometimes when we hit a rock bottom and we come up from it, our nervous system is like, okay, so whenever I want to have a big expansion, I need to create a rock bottom. No, we don't have to create a rock bottom every time we
So
want to
important.
evolve. You
Yeah.
can evolve from where you're at and be where you're at and then have a next expansion. We don't always have to go to rock bottom. Rock bottom is typically the start, though, because we hit such a literal rock bottom with what we feel that it has us operating and moving in a new way that we would have never moved before, aka going through an awakening. And awakening is just shifting our mindset and how we view life and how we interact with our realities. And so you don't have to create rock bottoms for yourself each time you want an expansion. So, guys, please don't do that, because I've seen people do that. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, the body does that because, again, the ego is like, what works? Rock bottom worked. So subconsciously, you create another rock bottom for yourself, but you're not looking for the rock bottom. You're looking for the motivation and the expansion. And you can have that from where you're at.
Hmm. I think that's such an important point because, yeah, you're so right. And the nervous system does play a huge role in how we
Mm-hmm.
manifest. You know, we're talking about the body to begin with and how listening to those butterflies and those sort of whispers of your body into
Mm-hmm.
what it wants. But also, yeah, like you have to become the things that you want. You have to become the frequency of the things that you want.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you do that?
You know, in my opinion, or in my experience, becoming the frequency of the thing that I want is actually the hardest part for me.
Okay.
And I'll say this because I've noticed that there's that aspect of realizing I can have whatever I want. And if I see the vision, it's mine and I can have it. And that part clicked. And I don't know if it's because I'm a Libra, I'm an air sign, I'm very good with imagining and envisioning things and being
I,
like being in those airy fairy thoughts are so easy for me. So I can see the vision and it's so easy for me. And I think a big part of my work is I see the vision for other people. So I paint the picture for them and they're like, oh my God, yes. And so
this is
that
in your human design, and I'm
is
just
it.
like, yeah,
Yeah, like that
we,
part is so easy for me. But then I've noticed, and this is where the human element of our experience comes in. When we've had certain traumas, certain beliefs, the body stores these things. And so when I see aspects of a future reality that I want to like tap into, and so it's like vibrating at that frequency, which is being that version, I see that my body freaks out a lot of the time. And
hmm,
it freaks out because it has found safety in being here, but here has been a protective space for me, a defensive space for me. And so moving out of this space of safety into an actual healthy space that then that's safe, my body freaks out. And I'm like, it's not safe. It's not safe. I don't know. Can I do it? And I always find that that is the hardest part for me. And so I've learned that while our minds can believe in a new reality, our bodies take time and it's about leaning into it. And it's like, what did someone call it? Exposure therapy. Doing the thing that freaks you out, but at the same time, like literally holding your body, holding space for your body, honoring your body, reminding your body it's safe, it's okay. And one of my coaches actually told me in order to rewire the body to feel safe in new experiences, you need to have that new experience 5 to 7 times until the
wow.
body is like, okay, wait, this is actually safe.
Hmm.
And so I find that for me and a lot of people that I work with too, that is one of the hardest parts. It's shifting the body because the mind can catch up and be like, I can have this. This is real. This is good. And then the body's like, hold on a second. I think we're going to die if we do this. And the body is dramatic like that. And so that's where I find my biggest hold up, not my hold up, but my biggest obstacle for me is
Hmm.
having my body aligned to that. But that's where I found of like, you know what, we're not going to take the whole picture and be like, jump into that. I take it tiny bit by tiny bit so I can digest each bit and feel comfortable in that. And that's how I find that things actually speed up for me and I can be in that reality is when I take tiny bits at a time.
Yeah, I love that. I love that exposure therapy as well. Like,
Hmm.
something that I'm manifesting right now is buying my apartment in a specific place in
Hmm.
Stockholm. And the sort of exposure therapy that I've started, actually, I allowed myself to do the first one like a week ago, literally because it was downstairs in the apartment that I live in now. I was like,
Mhm.
God has put it on my doorstep, so I get that exposure. It is going and viewing apartments, just going
Mhm.
in to have a look and exposing my body into believing that I can make that my reality, that that
Yeah.
is my reality. But I do also have that sort of, I feel that friction in my body. It's almost like you kind of close up a little bit and,
Uh-huh.
sort of that for me. And this is why when we've been talking about manifestation, why I feel limitations are really important to look at, because really that reaction in my body, for me, I know it comes from my limitations, you know?
Those reactions oftentimes are our limitations.
Yeah.
They are our limiting beliefs. And I think a lot of people, when they feel that, they freeze and they're like, see, this is why I can't have this. And it's like, no, because you decided you want to have this, these things are coming up.
Yeah.
It's showing you literally precisely what's been in your way.
Yeah.
Now it's about moving through them. You know, I've been having this experience in dating because I started dating
Mhm.
again, and
Mhm.
oh my God, like the freakouts I have before I go on dates. And I
Right.
realize as I sit with it, I'm like, there's so many limitations around love, subconscious limitations that I have around love. And that's where these freakouts come from because it's oftentimes not a logical thing. It doesn't make sense. Like, Abby, just go view apartment. What's a big deal? Seema, just go have dinner with a guy. What's a big deal? These things are not logical limitations. They're very internal, subconscious. And this is where we get to sit with what we're feeling with curiosity.
Hmm.
And people oftentimes judge themselves and they judge the experience they're having, but it's like, no, 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 the experience you're having is the magic, is the wisdom. And when you sit with what's coming up for you with curiosity and you allow your body to speak to you, that's where the limiting beliefs come up. That's when you see the limiting belief and you're like, wow, I get to work on this. Like
Yeah.
I realized for me, I could talk to guys and I'm completely fine. The second it's let's go on a date, I start to panic. And I
Mm.
sat with myself and I'm like, Seema, why? Like, what's going on? I'm just curious. We don't have to go on any dates. Why? And as I sat and I literally sit and I talk to myself and I talk to my body because my body's the one that's having this different experience. My head's like, I want to go out. And I realized my body is storing these very old beliefs of who and how I quote unquote have to be in love. I need to be this type of woman and I need to act like this and speak like this and show up like that in order to be loved. And I was like, oh my God, my body has a complete different narrative of what love and marriage looks like. And to me, it feels like a jail sentence. I'm
Mm.
like, no wonder I freak out before I go on dates because my body's like, no, 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 no. If we fall in love, it's a jail sentence. You lose all of your freedom. I don't want to go.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, so that's what's been getting in the way here.
Right. And look, do you see? This is the power of awareness and
Mm-hmm.
listening to your body,
Mm-hmm.
because you you could so easily have that feeling in your body and just cancel the dates.
Yeah, and cancel every date.
Yeah.
But then
One
when
of
you
them.
see, when I saw a pattern before every date that I wanted to cancel the date, and I'm like, what's going on here? Like, there's one thing to be nervous before you go on a date, and I think that's completely normal. But when we catch patterns and we're like, what's going on here? And sitting with it without judgment. I think we oftentimes judge ourselves, but sitting with it without judgment, sitting with those feelings with curiosity of what's coming up for us, we actually get the clarity. And I want to point something out to everyone who's listening to this. People oftentimes think, oh, like you guys have everything figured out. No, we have not a lot of things figured out in our life. We just know how to interact with it as it shows up for us. And that's what this human experience is interacting with these different layers when they show up for us. But there are always different layers that are showing up.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
this is something I love about us so much, because we kind of get excited when these things happen. You'll send me a voice clip and you'll say, "Ah, I've had this breakthrough on why I am." nervous to go on dates or whatever else it is. And we literally we talk about our limitations all the time
Mm-hmm.
because again, when you are in that interaction with your life and in it's almost like when you're in on the way towards those things that you're manifesting, you're clear about what you want and you're letting yourself sort of pursue them like through
Mm-hmm.
your life. Like you've said before, these things they show up and it's how we deal with it that makes the
Yeah.
difference.
And
You know?
I think some people think when they're clear about their manifestation and they're on their journey going there, they think the road is going to be like, yay, like we're just going to get there. But they don't realize that the whole journey is every single limitation. That's what comes up. And
Yeah.
so people don't want to face that and they're like, this is why I can't do it. And I'm like, that's the only way through. Limit every time we want to manifest anything in our lives, the thing that comes up along the way are all of the things that have been keeping us from it. And the only thing that keeps us from what we want to have are limitations in our belief system. That's
Mm.
it. And sometimes it comes from conditioning from childhood. Sometimes it comes from experiences we've had. But at the end of the day, they're simply beliefs, and those become the limitations, and those are what are in our way. So when we see a vision, the limitations are what come up. And that's why you said working on limiting beliefs is the most important part of manifestation. And it's like, yeah,
Mm.
it's the meat, it's the middle part, like it's the
Sure.
chunk of it. And it's I think then that's the hardest part because the body is used to believing something different. And when you
Mm.
want to give it a new belief, which is actually the true belief, is sometimes it feels hard to believe it, but that's the work that we must be committed to.
Mm-hmm. How do you, on a personal level, when it comes to when these limitations come up and you sit with them and you're curious about them, is there anything that you do in order to rewire or work with them in a different way?
Um, I've realized for myself that when I have these thoughts that make me feel not the best, like anxious and like not happy or not excited, I'm like, these are not true. We can feel it. I think having this new relationship with my body is what works a lot, where I'll tell my body, like, we could feel this, but this is not the truth. I hope you know, body, I love you so much, but you're believing a lie. And so
Mm.
when I tell my body and I remind my body these things that it's believing is a lie, and I act as this like motherly, nurturing figure to my body of like, hey, I actually have a new belief for us here. And I talk to my body like this nurturing mother of, well, here's the new belief. And you see how good this feels? This is the truth.
Mm.
And so we're just learning to believe in the truth. And I deeply, 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 with all the work that I've done, I deeply believe that the thoughts that make me feel amazing are the truth. And because I have that core belief, it makes
Mm.
it easier for those true beliefs to come in and integrate and be there because I'm like, anything that feels awful is not the truth. So I'm not going to live with that.
Yeah.
And so once I spot a non-truth in my vessel, in my system, I always meet it with so much grace. I meet it with so much compassion. I meet it with so much curiosity because I'm just like, ooh, thank you for showing me this. I didn't know you needed my love with this one too. And
Yeah.
so then when I show up as this, like, it's like simultaneously like my own best friend, that big sister who's got your back, and the mother who is that nurturer. When I
Mm.
show up that way for my body feels safe to like begin to adjust this
Mhm.
feeling, this old thing that it's been holding on to.
I love that.
And
And you know,
that's where these layers of inner work are important because when I look back at my own journey, there was the journey of becoming my own best friend, there was the journey of becoming my own big sister, and then the journey of becoming my own mother.
I
And
love
when we
that.
become those things for ourselves, you see, like they all show up for you when you're literally transmuting these old beliefs into newer ones.
Mm. I love that. And you know, it's making me also learn so much more about you, hearing your like your process, you know,
Mhm.
and you know, I think it's interesting as well because you're a Libra, you're, you know, air sign. I'm your opposite. I'm
Which is why we get along so well.
Sagittarius.
Opposites attract.
Right. Like it's so interesting because I think for me, when I find a limitation, I I almost like get to work at like rewiring that belief,
Mm-hmm.
and I will sit, my mornings, both of our mornings are sacred. We love our luxurious, soft morning,
Mm-hmm. Slow
right?
mornings.
I love my mornings. And I sit in the morning and I rewrite things, I rewrite these beliefs that I have or that I've caught. I don't have them anymore, right? And I reaffirm the opposite,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, that works to sort of rewrite what I have thought or felt to be true. And then I also, as any fire sign, is I start like trying to move into the beliefs that I have. So, for instance, it's like, yeah, like this apartment that I'm manifesting to buy. I will browse online. I will look at apartments online and I will visualize and see myself walking through these different apartments and just, but again, the body being in that viewing is a little bit more real,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I just start doing things, to sort of support what that manifestation is.
How do you feel like you help your body feel good in feeling this new frequency?
Hmm, that's a good question. I think visualization actually helps me a lot,
Mm-hmm.
so visualizing my body receiving something, or like I actually tend to feel the emotions
Mm-hmm.
of a new reality. So a vision that I have with this manifestation that, is going to come true at some point. I have the vision in my mind and my body. And sometimes I can literally sit with it and I just feel like it's this pride
Mm-hmm.
inside my body, and I just feel the energy exuding from me. And that is the way when I'm in my own space and when I'm just like, yeah, really allowing my body to soften into that and feel safe with that. It's through
Mm-hmm.
the visualization. It's through feeling the emotions I'm gonna feel in the moments when it arrives,
I
you
love
know?
that.
Yeah. Hmm.
I love it. Yeah, like you see, and I love that like we have these different experiences with them.
Yeah.
And for you, the feeling helps you move through it. And for me, it's like the nurturing my body helps me move through it and feel very safe in feeling that feeling.
I love that. So tell people about how you explain manifestation when it comes to the Uber ride, because
Oh, my
I
Uber description. I can't even say it's my Uber description because Spirit gave me this analogy in all these sessions. And I'm like, wait, this is really good. And I think it's something people get to like realize just as like a general blueprint for manifestation is that much like an Uber where you have to give a direct pickup point and a direct drop off point, we have to be very well aware of where we're at and we have to be very honest with ourselves of where we're at right now and as clear as we know that we're at because some people are in denial with the reality. Nope, everything's fine, everything's good. No, it's fine. This is where I'm going. And oftentimes people who are like that and they don't want to like acknowledge where they are at, they'll see it's like they're running on a treadmill. They're moving, doing all these things, but they're never getting to a goal and they're wondering why. And it's because you haven't been very clear on where you're energetically being picked up from and moved from. So being very honest with ourselves and real with ourselves with where we're at is very, very important. And then being as specific as we possibly can be with where we're going is super important too, because think of it, if Uber picks you up and you're like, take me here, they're like, where? Or like, even if, let's say, an airport, for example, you tell Uber, take me to LAX. Great. Which terminal do you want to go to? This is
Mm,
very, very specific. And then even in that terminal, there's different airlines. Which airline in that terminal? And then they drop you right in front of that one. Could you imagine if you went to like a big airport and you're like, just drop me off at the front of the airport, and then they drop you off there? It's going to take you at least 45 minutes to walk in and to your terminal. So, like, it makes it even harder, but it's asking be very specific. And then when we're very specific about where we are going, you have a pickup point, you have a drop off point, and the part in between, the how you get there, and that's where a lot of people get stuck because they're like, how do I get there? How do I get there? How do I get there? It's none of our business. When
Yeah.
you're sitting in an Uber, are you wondering how that driver is getting there? No, the driver has navigation. And what is navigation other than something in the sky that's sending it a signal of how to get somewhere? And
Oh,
you're like, okay, the driver is going to get there. If there's a roadblock, if there's an accident, if there's a detour, you're not like, oh, let me turn back and go back home. Now I can't do this. You're like, well, there must be another route. Let's figure out. It might take me a little bit longer to get there. I might be a little bit late, but I'm getting there. And so that is the journey of like even how to get there. We don't have to worry about the how. Let that be God's job, the universe's job, whatever you want to call it. You just know with certainty this is where I'm getting. So when you get picked up to go to the airport and there's an accident, there's a delay or something's happening, you're not like, oh, I'm not going anymore. You know exactly where you're going. And you know, one way or another, I'm getting there. Your eye isn't on the accident or what's in front of you.
mm,
Your eye is on, well, I'm getting there. So then what do I have to do here to get there?
yeah.
And that's literally the thing. The other thing I want to add for people is some people are so obsessed with where they're at
Mm,
that they don't look at where they're going because they think if I obsess with where I'm at and I figure out what is so wrong about where I'm at, this will give me the solutions and then this will tell me why I am, and then I'll get to my future. And this is why some people live in this like cycle of it feels like the same day every day for 5 years. And even though I'm doing all this inner work, my reality has not changed. I'm exactly where I'm at. And so being obsessed with where you're at and what's not working of where you're at, you're
mm,
going to create the same reality. So I see some people getting stuck with where
yeah.
they're at, and I'm like, you have to actually see where you want to go. Because the only way to pull yourself out of where you're at is to give direction to energy. So you
Mm,
have to
mm,
see where you want to go because now you're giving direction to energy. Energy is always flowing, and it's flowing in the direction of our thoughts and our visions. So
yeah.
if our thoughts and our vision is on what's not working and where we're at, you're literally just recreating that for yourself, no matter what action steps you're taking.
Exactly.
So that vision and directing energy is so important.
Mm.
And
What
then
would you say? Good.
I'm gonna add a third step before that
Good.
because this is something you and I actually spoke about where you're like, when we want to create something, well, we have to do new things and we have to take different action steps that we have never taken before. So it's like if you want something new, you must do something you've never done before.
Hmm.
Absolutely 1000%. But
Hmm.
that's where I came in and I'm like, there's a hidden piece that people often forget, and it's who you are being when you do
Mm,
that doing. Because oftentimes people forget who I'm being here is my limiting beliefs, my subconscious beliefs, and all of those things. If I just say, okay, now I want this, and I spring into action, I'm doing things based on who I am now. Who
mm,
I am now gives me the frequency of the reality that I currently have. So if you are taking all of these action steps and nothing is changing and your reality is the same, it's because your being has to change first. That inner world, that inner relationship with yourself, it has to come crumbling down. And we must build a new being within ourselves because it's be, do, have. You must
mm,
be that version. And from that being is where you take action steps from. And then you have the thing that you have. So it's not just a let me spring into action, do this, and then I'll have this. We have to look at our being. We have to look at who we are being, what we are believing. And that is, we are the foundation.
yes. Oh,
And so if you have caught yourself doing all of these things and your reality is the same thing year after year, pause right there. You got to change your being. You got to change who you
mm,
are
mm,
because who you are is creating this reality. So if you're doing all these things, you're just recreating the same reality. We have to change at our core of who we are
mm, hmm.
because it's be, do, have.
Exactly. And it's, something that I like to do. And this, I mean, it comes back to the decision-making authority because I feel like making decisions as our future self. I think that
Yeah.
is one of the ways that for me, that is how I step into that being.
That, you know what? That's one of the things you've taught me a lot. So,
Really? I love
yeah,
that.
you are very big on that. And like
Mm.
you remind me to do that. So tell me how that looks like for you when you make decisions as your future self.
So, I mean, I believe with human design, I believe my decision-making authority is literally like a direct line to my future self anyway. And
Mm-hmm.
so I go with that. But for example, but sometimes, of course, like our limiting beliefs can seep in and we can start talking ourselves out of things. I'm not perfect, of course. I have my moments with that. But I will just consult with my future self. I will literally sit, and if I'm feeling like I'm indecisive or, you know, whatever it is coming up for me, like a decision I have to make, I'll literally sit with myself and I will ask my future self, what would she do in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
She has everything that, I desire and all of it. She's at that frequency that
She's
I
already living that
She's
life.
there. She's there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing as well, because I think some people, a vision of the kind of life that they want to live will come into their head, or there will be a passion that they have about something. And again, we talk ourselves out of it. But there's a reason it came to you. It didn't come to
Mm-hmm.
me.
Right.
It's the reason that you're passionate about what you're passionate about, you know, is yours. And that's like one of those nuggets. That's one of those breadcrumbs. But I really feel, yeah, like we can consult with our future self, you
I
know?
think it's a very, very powerful practice because if we are talking about this being part of it
Mm.
and who we get to be, well, we get to be our future self. So consulting with our future self, what he or she would be doing in this moment, that helps us change our being. But that's why the vision's important because then in that vision, we see who we're being in that vision. And I think that's an important piece to add here of when we see the vision, don't only look at the things you have, because oftentimes we look at the material things that we have, where we have the partner, we have the children, we have the house, we have the career, we have the business, which is beautiful, lovely. We forget to look at, well, who am I being?
Mm,
Who am I in that vision? Because I'm not the same me. And I think that's the important part is when you see that vision, then deeply look at who you are there.
mhm.
And then your current self consults that self. And that's how you become her. And then you start taking action steps from there. And then you have it. There's the
Like,
formula.
get to know her. Get
Yeah.
to know your future self.
I think that, you know what, as we're even talking about this, I'm like, I think in this manifestation of me right now wanting to manifest love, I'm like, I think that's the part that I haven't done is I haven't consulted my future self who is in love. And I'm like, I need to sit with her and
Yeah,
get to
I
know
love
her now.
Yes, I love that. And I think as well, here I have a question for you.
Hmm.
So, when people say, because I have an answer for this as well, but when people say to you that I don't know what I want,
Uh-huh.
what are your thoughts on that? Or what
I
is your answer?
always, whenever a client tells me, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I'm like, stop saying, I don't know. Because
Hmm.
truth is, you do know. Deep within our vessel, in our subconscious, we do know. The more you say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, you're literally telling your body, don't give me the clarity because I don't know. And what we tell ourselves is what our body is going to create. So you're going to continuously not know. If we feel like we don't know, instead say, I'm realizing that I'm ready to receive clarity on this thing and I'm ready to receive the knowing of this.
Hmm.
Because you see, when you say that, you're acknowledging that I'm not clear right now on this. But because I'm aware that I'm not clear, I'm also aware that I'm ready to receive the clarity.
Oh, yes. I
And
love
when you
that.
put yourself in that state, you will receive the clarity because, of course, you know.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, something I love this because I think it's so great that, people who are listening are getting both of our perspectives because they're getting different ways that they can play with this. So something I always say is get rid of the things that you don't want. So there's a lot of things in our life that we know it's not something we want. This is me again, the fire sign, taking
I was
action.
gonna say this is such the Aries in you because my brain doesn't go there.
But I'm like, those things, it can be little things,
Yeah.
right? But these things that we are holding on to or we're settling for, and we know this in our soul, we know it's frustrating us, our energy is exhausted, whatever it is, right? We can allow ourselves, we've got to create space, right?
Yeah.
For the things that we want. It needs
Yeah.
space. And if we've got things that are sort of taking up that space, let ourselves let go of the things that we don't want. I
I
think.
actually love that. And I think that that is, you're very much in the action steps of stuff. Like you love
Yeah.
taking action steps, and I love like being in the feeling of it. But I think that is a very, very good and powerful action step because I may not know what I want, but I know what I don't want, and I know
Mm,
what's not working for me. So if I remove that thing, then I'm actually exposing the opposite of it, which is what would be working for me.
mm.
So, yeah, you could remove what it is that you know you don't want because on the opposite of that is what you do want.
Yeah. And I know it's hard. I have so many people that come to me and they say, "Oh, but I can't, there's a lot of buts around letting go of certain things." And
Hmm.
my question is, well, what's the alternative?
Mm,
If this is not something that is fueling or feeding your life in it's actually doing the opposite. What's is the alternative that you're just going to stay in this loop for 1 2 5 10 years?
yep,
I
it's
think
very true.
and so I think in those moments we have to choose ourselves
Yeah.
and
That's where you take an action step that feels uncomfortable, but
mm,
you do it because you're like, this is going to feel uncomfortable, but this is the action step I need to take in order to create a different reality. It's like going to the gym. If we want to lose weight and look toned, we gotta go to the gym. And
exactly.
nobody wakes up every single day like, I'm so excited to go to the gym. There are days where you're like, I really don't want to go do this workout. Like, I just want to sit on my couch and watch TV. But
Hmm.
like those are the moments where like no, you show up for yourself. You go and then you do that thing and like each time you do it, you just feel better and you become someone different. Someone
Yeah.
who goes to the gym consistently after not going to the gym, let's say ever, you become someone different in that relationship with yourself because you showed up for yourself
Mm,
over and over and over and over
exactly.
again. And you literally become someone different. And that's why your reality starts to change. So, yeah, it's uncomfortable. It's never easy in any of these aspects. Even something down to you viewing apartments and me going on dates. The shit's not easy. It feels very uncomfortable.
Exactly. But
But we do it and we show up for ourselves. And you got to take the action steps to then put yourself into a new frequency to become that future you. Because let's say that future us that has this body that you want, well, she doesn't sit on leg day. She gets up and she goes to the gym. That's the action step she takes. Or for me, who wants to be in love, she doesn't cancel dates because she's nervous. She becomes the version of her that shows up in these dates that feels very powerful and good about herself.
yeah, exactly. And I think the universe loves a little bit of movement, So you've got to kind of, uh, you know, because a question I get quite a lot is, what's my purpose, right? And
Mm-hmm.
this is why I'm coming back to the breadcrumbs. This is why I always say the breadcrumbs and the small actions that we take are important
Yeah.
because, when it comes to like your favorite reality, it doesn't just knock on your door
No.
and it's not just delivered. Here it is. Like, you unpack it, it's there. We have to take little steps,
Yeah.
and the universe meets us when we
Yep.
take those steps, especially, like I love leaping. It's not a problem for me to move countries and do all these things. And really, when you leap, oh my God, does the universe meet you? The universe
Every
meets
time.
you in the biggest way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because I've experienced it so many times, I have so much trust and such a belief.
You know what? Give us an example of that.
Oh, okay. I have a good example actually. So when I was in Bali, I was living in Bali for okay, there's many things I could say here. So I was living in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And then I decided this just wasn't for me. I went to live in Bali for 5 months, and I was I wasn't sure when I was going to leave Bali. I was just
Mm-hmm.
kind of it was kind of this transient place for me. It was like this transition place. And it was just literally one day. It was like I just got this, it just clicked, and I was like, I am actually ready to leave.
I
And I
remember
wanted to, yeah, I was just like, okay, when can I leave? I need to leave as soon as
And I
possible.
want to tell people this. She had just rented a brand new space there for a month and paid for that full month. So she had every intention of being in Bali for another month. But I think like not even a week into being in that new space, you're just like, I need to leave.
It was actually before I even got into the
I
space.
think so too. I think it was before you even got there. You're like, I actually like, but you had already booked and paid for it. It was
Yep.
reserved and ready to go. You're like, I think I need to leave.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so what happened in the literally I was ended up being in that space for 1 week. And during that week, I was thinking to myself, okay, so I'm going to move back to Sweden. I feel like and what happened was I felt like I was already the person I said I needed to be before I moved to Sweden. It was like it clicked and it was this realization, I'm already here. What am I waiting for?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went. So getting an apartment to rent in Stockholm is considered to be hard. It's considered to be a challenge. I personally have always landed on my feet and so I sort of I started looking, okay, where am I going to live? And I had like, okay, this plan and that plan. Literally out of the sky, I put something on my Instagram. I didn't even say anything about Sweden. I just put a Swedish flag. And one of my friends reached out to me and said, are you moving to Sweden? And I was like, yeah, I'm moving back. And she was like, are you looking to rent an apartment? And I was like, hold up. Yes. And she asked me, what's your budget? And she asked me, when do you want to move in? Literally everything was exact,
Perfect. Mm-hmm.
perfect. And and so literally I had an apartment. It was signed, sealed, contracts, everything accepted before I even left Bali.
And in a
And
location that you loved in Sweden too. It
in
wasn't
a
some random
location I
place.
loved,
Hmm.
everything. And so many people, when I told them, was like, how did that? Because a lot of people have the belief here that it's so hard to find a rental.
As an observer of that experience that you went through,
Yeah.
well, you already know this, but I want to tell people this as they're listening to this story. The reason why things worked out exactly how they worked out like this is because when Abby decided, I'm moving back to Sweden now, I feel the call, I'm ready, I'm already that version of me. Like, it, Bali was like a eat, pray, love experience for you of like coming home to this different aspect of you evolving yourself. You were becoming something. You see, you weren't doing stuff. You were becoming something. Once you became that, and when you become this next version of you, you just know then you're ready to spring into action. It just happens, and that's why it clicked for you. You're like, I'm ready. I'm ready to go back. And it wasn't I'm ready to go back if and when I find an apartment and X, Y, and Z. There was no if and when. There was just it's time for me to go back. I'm going back. So it was like the concept of having the space to live and getting there. It was like none of that was a thing because you're like, no, because I feel it's time for me to go back. It's time. Therefore, all of that's done. Where's my apartment? And
Yeah.
then
I
bam, it
didn't think
found
about it.
you. Yeah, there was no limiting belief in how, because again, the how is none of our business. It
No.
was just a, I'm ready. And because I'm ready, the things that I need to get me there are also ready, and I am ready to receive them, which
Hmm.
is what you were in receiver mode. I'm ready to receive it. So you received the opportunities, you received the apartment, you received everything, and then you moved. There was no how. in the process. You
Mm.
didn't let the how get in the way. Like it was non-existent. And I remember you told me, you're like, in Sweden and in this area, and you were clear on what area in Sweden you wanted to move into, and you were clear on your budget and how much you wanted to pay. You were even clear on the vibe you wanted to create in your space because you were clear on all of these things without limitations. There wasn't like, ooh, but it's not possible for me. You're like, of course it is. Like, that's the only option. Because you were so clear on these things, it all found you. And it's exactly what you said. You had these visions because that is what existed for you. And so you just said yes to what you were picking up on. You're like, great, yes, this is it. So we're going now, right? And the universe was like, yeah, you're right, we're going.
I love that.
Yeah. And it was cool because I got to like bear witness to the whole experience.
It was just like it felt like such a quantum leap.
It was. But it
Yeah.
was because you took that, you felt a call to go to Bali and you took that leap. And when you went to Bali, Bali was your becoming. You
Mm.
weren't doing a lot in Bali. You were being this new
Yeah.
version of you in Bali. You were becoming this new version of you in Bali. And this is why I say we have to become first.
Yeah.
And you became an evolved version of you. You became the version of you that is the woman who lives in Sweden because you knew your next step after Bali was Sweden. You knew that. And so
Yeah.
you became her. And then from becoming her, you took the ash and subs to take you there.
Ugh. I remember as well, you said you did a reading for me,
Hmm.
and you said something I remember you said,
I think I remember this
you're
too.
you're upgrading and downloading at the same time.
Hmm.
And you said there's gonna come a moment like that.
I remember telling you there because you thought you wanted to stay in Bali for 6 more months or something. I was like, Abby,
You're
I
like,
think you're gonna leave. I was like, I think you're gonna leave far before that.
yeah.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what about you? Is there anything else you want to say about something that you've manifested that sort of
I think when it comes to my business, it's something that I'm so passionate about, and I love sharing how I have manifested like bigger things in this field.
yeah.
And I remember a few years ago when I moved out to my apartment and I had picked like the type of apartment, the lifestyle I wanted to have, like the type of building I wanted to be in, and like there was no other option other than that. And I remember I felt such a calling to move in. And so once I moved in, there's always this fear of like, oh my God, now I have to pay this much for rent and this much for car and this much for insurance and this much for life and all that stuff. All the logical stuff was coming up, but I was like, no, I know that I picked this place because in my gut, in my intuition, I knew that in order to expand my business, I needed to take a big leap in life. So I
Mm,
took that leap and I went into that new space, all the while knowing this is to expand not just me, but it expands my business. And I started doing everything with that intention. Now, for the first like 6 or 7 months of being there, my business was not expanding. It was very much the same. But I was like, no, internally I'm expanding. I'm becoming ready to receive the expansion. And I remember saying that to myself, and logic and reality were two different things. Like, logic was, you need to be realistic about this, like this is not happening. But the reality I was choosing to see was I am so successful. There are so many people that want to work with me. I am the biggest name in spirituality. And bam,
mm,
by the end of that same year, all the opportunities came and everything expanded. And so we have to trust our intuition with what we want to do. We have to move very intentionally. And when we make the move intentionally, just because you don't get your results right away doesn't mean fall back. I did not fall back for 1 second in those 8 months where nothing was changing. I didn't go into fear. I didn't change my mind. I didn't change the location of the direction I was going in. I was like, no, that's where we're going. I have faith, God. Take me there. Have me become the person who goes there. And in those 8 months, there was a big internal expansion. There was an expansion of my gift. There was an expansion of my vessel. There was such an expansion of my being and who I was so that I could receive that thing that I wanted to receive.
absolutely.
You
And I
know, and
think,
faith is
yeah,
such a big part. Like that whole time I had faith, unwavering faith. And there was months where I was spending more than I was making. I was going in negative some months. But even in that, I was like, doesn't matter. This is just the route to get there. It's all good. Even
And
though it didn't make logical sense, and I had no opportunities lined up for me. There was no opportunity there that I could see. I just knew and I believed.
it's kind of like a champagne bottle sometimes. It's kind of like you're a cork, when it pops, and this is the thing, it can happen at any point, and you've just got to hold firm and have the faith. Because I think in those moments that you're talking about, those 8 months, so many people give up.
Yeah, that's exactly. So many people give up because they give into fear. They stop believing in their vision. I knew in those 8 months, I was like, I have this vision. This vision is given to me by God. It's not just something I created for myself. I know that this is a God-given vision because of how it feels in my body. I get to trust myself and I get to trust the process of this. And so no matter what ups and downs were happening, for example, those months where I was in negative,
Hmm.
it didn't deter me away from my vision. If anything, I held even stronger to that vision. And I think that's a very important part of manifestation. It doesn't just come because we bat our eye and then we're there. It's the things we experience along the way. We don't lose the vision. We don't lose sight of where we're going. And the bigger the vision is, the bigger it's going to require you to hold on to it, like grip the vision and don't let it go no matter what comes up.
Hmm.
And so that, like, it's that resilience, and it's also it's who I became in the process. Gripping onto that vision made me the woman that I am, so that when I started being on all of these podcasts that have really big platforms, people saw this woman who's grounded, who's secure, who's assertive, who's feminine, but also fierce, and she has this powerful gift. Those 8 months made me that woman. I
Hmm.
was becoming in those months.
Yeah, I love that so much.
And so it's that process where we're like we feel like we're waiting, but it's like you're not waiting, you're becoming. You're actively becoming something. That's very
Mhm.
much the feminine side of it. It's not doing, it's being.
Yeah.
And
And I think when there's a lot of stillness outside
mhm.
of ourselves, there's a lot actually going on within.
Yes, and that is just as important as the action steps we take. We
So
tend to put
important.
so much emphasis on the action steps and
Mm.
not enough on the being. And this is where, for both men and women, it's the becoming and it's that, and it really is, it's an aspect of our feminine that allows ourselves to be so present with ourselves and go through this inner transformation, these inner deaths and rebirths that has us becoming a different version of ourselves. And then that version then takes the action steps. So I think a big reminder is to celebrate ourselves in those moments of becoming and not pushing ourselves to have to do things and realizing the becoming is just as important as the doing.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like to sort of end this episode on, I feel like I just want to remind everybody who's listening, anything that you dream of
Mm-hmm.
for yourself is for you.
Exactly.
Full permission
Yes.
to listen to that.
You would not be given that vision if that reality was not possible.
Yeah. Oh,
And so clutch, hold on to these visions and say, God gave this to me. I'm not letting go of it. It's mine. And let the journey be miraculous and beautiful of how you get there. Because it really is. There's been so many beautiful miracles along my journey. And I know, Abby, along your journey too. And it's just because we surrendered the how, and like the universe is magical when it delivers the how to you.
mm. And get excited. I think it's like exciting.
Yeah, it is. It's so, it really is so exciting. It is.
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
Ah, well, what a beautiful episode. I hope everybody enjoyed this.
Yes. Thank you
Yes.
guys for listening,
Yes.
and we will
We'll
see
see you
you
next
next.
week.
Bye.